That's the Hit Squad, and welcome back, guys. Here's your boy Sean.
And your girl Mel.
Yes.
Welcome, guys.
Welcome back.
All right, guys. Today we'll be reacting to why the rest of the world thinks Americans are brainwashed.
Whoa, Nelly.
Wow.
The rest of the world think that we're brainwashed?
The rest of the world? Oh, my goodness.
I can't wait to get into this.
That's kind of scary.
Yes.
It's nobody will take us serious. Like, if you think someone is brainwashed.
We just lost in the system.
Oh,
that's crazy, all right? So, guys, before we get into it, go ahead and smash that like button. Turn on that notification bell so you guys be notified next time we drop or upload a video. We thank you guys, all right? Here we go.
There is some wild propaganda that Americans are taught and don't even realize it's propaganda. Now, I should preface this by stating that I am an American. I love my country. My family goes all the way back to Jamestown. My grandfather fought in World War II. I was born in Los Angeles. I went to university in Texas. I was raised singing the Star-Spangled Banner and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm about as American as it gets. Well, besides these guys. But I've also spent the last decade studying cults, dogma, and religious extremism, and thought control. And as someone who has lived in over a dozen countries and traveled to more than 35 of them, I've started noticing some extremely troubling forms of propaganda that Americans are taught from childhood. Things that people in free, developed democratic countries overseas find absolutely bizarre, and things that most Americans never question, because we've been marinating in it since birth. And look, every country has its own brand of propaganda. I'm not trying to pretend that America is uniquely evil here, but what makes American propaganda so effective is that most of us don't even realize it exists. We think that propaganda is something that happens in North Korea or Soviet bases, posters of dictators, and state-controlled media. We don't recognize it when it's sung at football games and printed on a bumper sticker. So here are 7 forms of propaganda that you probably didn't even realize that you grew up with if you're an American.
Holy Kool-Aid. Oh,
Number 1, US-centric education. American history is extraordinarily short. We are talking a few centuries compared to civilizations that span millennia. And yet, if you grew up in an American public school, you would think that the United States was the center of human history. Geography classes often aren't taught at all, and world history courses, when they are taught, are basically how does the rest of the planet relate to America. The Vietnam War is taught as a war for freedom. Westward expansion is framed as brave pioneers taming a wild frontier, not as the systematic displacement and genocide of indigenous peoples who've been living there for thousands of years. World War II, Americans swoop in and save the day, with little mention of the roughly 27 million Soviets who died on the Eastern Front doing the bulk of the fighting against Hitler. Now, compare that to how other countries teach history. In much of Europe, kids actually learn global history. They study African kingdoms, Asian dynasties, Middle Eastern contributions to science and mathematics. They learn about colonialism for what it actually is, not heroic adventure, but exploitation. When I talk to Americans who are traveling abroad for the first time, I'm often shocked at how little they know about the rest of the world. And that's not by accident. A nation which doesn't teach its citizens about the world produces citizens who don't question their own nation's role in it. Number 2, the Cold War binary. If you grew up in America anytime after 1950, you absorbed one of the most effective propaganda frameworks ever constructed. Communism equals evil, capitalism equals freedom. Full stop. No nuance, no discussion, just a clean binary where one side wears white hats and the other side is a cartoon villain. What they don't teach you is that during the Cold War, the United States overthrew democratically elected governments around the world simply because the governments leaned left. In 1953, the CIA helped orchestrate a coup against Iran's democratically elected Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, because he nationalized Iran's oil industry. In 1954, the US toppled Guatemala's president, Arbenz, because his land reforms threatened the profits of United Fruit Company. In 1973, the CIA backed the overthrow of Chile's Salvador Allende, a democratically elected socialist, and replaced him with Augusto Pinochet, a brutal military dictator who tortured and murdered thousands. The Congo, Brazil, Indonesia, it's all the same playbook. America claimed to be defending democracy while systematically destroying it in order to exploit country after country. This all is recent history, and this binary thinking is still alive and well. If you suggest universal healthcare in America, watch how quickly someone calls you a communist. Propose free public university education, something that dozens of thriving democracies already provide, and suddenly you're a Marxist. The Cold War ended over 30 years ago, but the propaganda framework it built is still alive and kicking. If you want to start breaking free from propaganda, one of the most effective and powerful things that you can do is to expose yourself to other cultures, other perspectives, and other languages. My dad was a language teacher and I grew up multilingual, and I can tell you firsthand that learning another language doesn't just teach you new words, it gives you an entirely different lens through which to view the world. Which is why I love today's sponsor, LingoPie. LingoPie takes a completely different approach to language learning compared to the ineffective methods used in most classrooms and school. Instead of memorizing vocabulary lists or slogging through dry exercises, you learn by watching real TV shows and movies from the countries where the language is spoken, immersing yourself in their culture. It is engaging and is far closer to how people naturally acquire language. If you don't recognize a word, every subtitle is clickable, so you can instantly see the translation and save it. LingoPie then automatically turns these words into flashcards, which you can review later. There's also an AI grammar coach that explains phrases in context and a pronunciation tool that listens to you speak and gives feedback on your accent so that you can sound more natural. The platform has over 3,000 shows and movies across 14 different languages, and you can use it on just about any device. So rather than forcing yourself to study, why not just entertain yourself and let your brain absorb the language in a way that's fun? I like it so much that I actually bought a lifetime subscription long before they ever offered to sponsor the channel. It's easily my favorite way to learn. So if you've ever wanted to learn another language or just expose yourself to different cultures and perspectives, click the link below to get a 7-day free trial plus 55% off an annual plan and go see how it works for yourself.
I like that.
Number 3, the land of the free myth. Americans are told from birth that the United States is the freest country on earth. It's in the songs, it's on the bumper stickers. It's baked into the nation's identity so deeply that questioning it feels almost heretical. But is it true? Well, let's look at the data. On the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index, the US doesn't crack the top 50. It ranks 57th in the world, just below Sierra Leone.
What?
On the Cato Institute's Human Freedom
Sierra
Index, and
Leone?
keep in mind, the Cato
Sierra
Institute
Leone,
is a
that's in
libertarian think tank, not some leftist
Right.
outfit, multiple countries outrank America in both personal and economic freedom. The United States incarcerates
not
more
so.
people per capita than almost every other country on the planet. More than China, more than Russia, Iran, or North Korea. The land of the free locks up
God.
more of its own citizens than almost every authoritarian regime on earth. And a
What?
disproportionate number of them are Black and Latino.
Oh
This
my
is not what
gosh.
freedom looks like. It is a system designed to warehouse people. But it goes deeper. A handful of corporations control vast swaths of American industry, from media to agriculture to healthcare and tech. These corporations aren't just influencing a little bit of government policy, they're writing the policy. Politicians respond to donors and lobbyists, not constituents. Hell, there was a Princeton study which actually found that the preferences of American voters have a near zero statistical impact on whether a policy gets passed or not. But the preferences of
Well, how are we
economic
voting?
elites, big businesses, and organized interest
Wait a
groups are
minute.
strongly correlated with what policies actually get passed into law. In other words, your politicians don't care what you want, unless you're a
Are you
billionaire.
kidding
Elections
me?
are largely bought and paid for. Gerrymandering carves up districts so that the politicians
my.
can choose their
This
voters
is-
rather than the other way around, like it should be in a free democracy. Voter suppression laws target communities least likely to vote for the people in power, and the two-party system has become a self-reinforcing trap that incentivizes extremism over representation. We are taught,
Oh my
and this
God.
is hardcore propaganda, that America's electoral system is the best. Well,
Oh.
except when our guy loses, of course. But there is a much better electoral system. It is called ranked choice voting. And the only people who prefer our current system over ranked choice are those who are financially incentivized against freedom and democracy. Here's how it works. With
Really?
ranked choice, instead of picking just one candidate and hoping for the best, you rank out your preferences with your top choice at the top and your least choice at the bottom. If no one wins a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes gets eliminated, and the people who voted for them have those votes redistributed to their second choice. You keep going until someone actually has majority support. It rewards candidates who appeal broadly rather than those who energize the extremes. It reduces what's known as the spoiler effect and creates a better reflection of what voters actually want. There are already several US cities and states which have already adopted ranked choice voting, and it's the norm in countries like Australia and Ireland. But most
Wow.
Americans have never even heard of it because the two parties currently in power have zero incentive to tell you about the system that would threaten their grip, and they have every
Really?
incentive to criticize it.
You should run aggressively against ranked choice voting. It is a big
Number 4, America's
Wow.
stupidly big military budget. The US spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. Let that sink in. More than China, Russia, the UK, Saudi Arabia, Germany, France, Japan, South Korea, and Australia put together. Now, Americans are taught that this spending is about protecting freedom and defending the free world. And sure, a reasonable national defense is necessary, but the vast majority of this budget doesn't go to defense. It funds over 750 military bases in at least 80 countries. It funds interventions, regime changes, drone programs, and the maintenance of a global military empire. Meanwhile, American roads are crumbling, bridges are collapsing, the healthcare system bankrupts families, teachers buy their own classroom supplies, student debt has surpassed 1.7 trillion, and millions of Americans can't afford basic prescriptions. Other countries, meanwhile, invest their resources differently. Universal healthcare, free or affordable higher education, robust public transit, paid parental leave, affordable childcare, and as a result, their citizens are measurably healthier, better educated, less stressed, and by many metrics, happier. This isn't speculative, it's what the data consistently shows. Historians have a term for what happens when an empire pours its resources into military expansion while its domestic foundations rot. Imperial overstretch. And it's how empires collapse. The Romans did it, the British did it, the Soviets did it, and if you look at the trajectory, America is running headfirst over the same cliff. Number 5, the Pledge of Allegiance. Having children stand up every single morning, place their hands over their heart, face a flag, and recite a loyalty oath in unison is, by any outside standard, one of the creepiest things about America. I'm not saying this to be edgy. When you describe this practice to people from other democracies, their jaws hit the floor. They associate it with the kind of thing that you would see authoritarian regimes do, not in a country that calls itself the leader of the free world. Because think about what the pledge actually is. It is a feudal fealty oath. It is a declaration of personal loyalty to a state. Now, I understand why elected officials and military personnel swear oaths of service. That makes sense. They're accepting a position of public responsibility. But requiring a 6-year-old to pledge allegiance to a flag before they can even spell allegiance? It's brainwashing.
Sorry, I gotta stop it right there. I remember going to school, gotta put your right hand over your heart and say that pledge.
It's just like, watching this is blowing my mind. It's very scary, and
this is really
I have no words. Like, it's blowing my mind.
We are brainwashed. Let's go ahead and finish out the video, guys. This is sad.
Like, you realize the founding fathers would be horrified by this, right? These were men who literally threw off the yoke of another red, white, and blue flag when it represented tyranny. They understood and wrote extensively about the fact that it is the duty of every free person to question authority and resist tyranny, not just pledge blind loyalty to a piece of cloth. The entire American experiment was built on the idea that governments derive their power from the consent of the governed, and that when a government fails its people, those people have the right and the obligation to challenge it. This is the entire reasoning behind the Second Amendment. Creating mindless, loyal zombies out of children is the exact opposite of what the founders fought for, and yet suggests that we stop doing this in our children's schools and watch how fast you get called un-American. Number 6, the myth that America was founded as a Christian nation. If you've ever driven through the American South, or honestly, large parts of the Midwest and rural America, you've probably seen billboards saying things like, hell is real, abortion is murder, and Jesus saves. They line the highways like wallpaper, so pervasive that most people stop noticing them. Religious messaging in America is so saturated into the culture that it becomes invisible, which is exactly what makes it so effective. But here's what a lot of Americans don't know. The United States was never a Christian nation. The founders were explicit about this. The Constitution makes zero mention of Christianity or Jesus. The First Amendment enshrines the separation of church and state. The Treaty of Tripoli, unanimously ratified by the Senate in 1797 and signed by President John Adams, states in very plain language that the government of the United States is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion. That is not my interpretation. That is a legally binding document from the founding generation. So, where did the Christian nation myth come from? Well, in keeping with the rest of this video, propaganda. Cold War propaganda, to be specific. Under God was added to the Pledge of Allegiance in 1954. In God We Trust was added to the paper currency in 1957, and adopted as the national motto the year before. Our original motto, E Pluribus Unum, is more about plurality. Out of many, one. Both of these actions were deliberate moves to contrast the United States against godless communism. They weren't ancient traditions passed down by the founders. They're marketing decisions which were made by politicians in the 1950s. And now, barely 70 years later, millions of Americans will swear on a stack of Bibles that this country was founded as a Christian nation, and that anyone who says otherwise is attacking their heritage. The conflation of patriotism with Christianity is itself a product of propaganda, and it's one of the most dangerous because it means that questioning religion in America isn't just seen as blasphemy, it's treason. Number 7, American exceptionalism. This one is huge, the one that ties all the rest of it together. American exceptionalism isn't just this belief that America is different, it's a belief that America is inherently superior, better, divinely favored, the greatest country that God ever put on this earth. And it functions not just as a belief, but as a social enforcement mechanism. Because in America, criticism of the country is treated as betrayal. Point out that other nations have better healthcare outcomes, and you're told, well, why don't you just move there? Suggest that the military budget is bloated, and it is bloated, and suddenly you hate our troops. If you point out that Americans rank poorly on education, press freedom, or infant mortality compared to other developed countries, and you're suddenly ungrateful. Even liberals and progressives who critique America specifically because they want to improve it get branded as unpatriotic. Do you see how backwards that is? The messaging is clear. You can love America or you can criticize it. You can't do both. But in most healthy democracies, critique is understood as a form of patriotism. Wanting your country to live up to its own ideals isn't betrayal. It is the highest form of civic engagement. The pressure to never question America, to treat any criticism as an attack, to reflexively defend the status quo no matter how messed up it is because admitting a problem feels like admitting defeat, that social pressure is itself one of the most effective forms of propaganda there is, because it doesn't require a government agency or state-run media outlets. It's enforced by your neighbors and your coworkers, your family, and your own internalized guilt. Like I said at the beginning, I don't hate America. I want it to be better. And if that makes me un-American in your eyes, then, well, I think I kind of proved my point. It is the civic duty of every citizen to question what we've been taught, to explore outside the bubble, whether that's through reading, traveling, or learning other languages, using LingoPie, of course, and exposing ourselves to the perspectives that challenge our own assumptions. It's our duty to push back against propaganda and to exercise the very First Amendment rights that we claim to value. Because things don't have to be like this. They can be better. But we have to first recognize the propaganda and be honest with ourselves in order to get there. If you guys enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and if you want to support my work, you can do so with either a per video pledge on patreon.com/holykoolaid or a one-time PayPal donation. Links to all of that are in the description below. And if you're new here, smash that subscribe button because I have so much more crazy content to share with you. Thank you so much. And as always, dare to be curious, but don't drink.
We're going to follow you, buddy. I can tell you that.
Yes, let's subscribe.
Okay, let's hit that subscribe button.
Oh my gosh.
Because this guy is
Wow.
definitely spitting some knowledge. Propaganda, the lies, what we was taught in school. And then when you grow up, it's like what you was taught in school and what's going on don't add up. Something is off.
Yeah.
They building all these jails, but they say, you know, this is the land of the free for people that's not even here yet, not even born. They tell you what to eat. You know,
It's like we're under control, and like this video was so eye-opening because it's like when you're a child, you can't question your parents because your parents want to maintain control. And that's how it's starting to feel in the government. If you question anything,
you're going to be,
or want to learn something, it's like,
it's going to be some repercussions.
do what I tell you to do, or you're going to be in trouble.
Right. And
I don't think that people are understanding, but this it was very eye-opening and very scary at the same time, because it's like, wow, that sounds like an evil plan.
Yes.
I'm going to look up, when did God get put on the money, on our money? Like, because I thought in God we trust was always a part of our dollar, our currency.
I don't think so.
Like, that's really scary to me.
And to know that other countries look at us like different, that's like crazy.
And to know they're learning about the world and we're only learning about the United States and how amazing, how we're the most powerful country, but we're not taught about other countries and the real history.
Right.
It's like maybe we are brainwashed.
And these other countries are teaching their children the truth about what happened in the world. And I felt like we was taught mostly lies.
And I also feel like
hold on. The school system failed us.
When you're great, you love to see other people being great. There isn't like a jealousy inside of you that wants to take away from someone else just to be great. Like, true greatness is greatness no matter what. If other people are great, it's just greatness. You can't take away from its greatness. But like, control is when I try to hide other people's greatness to show my own, and it isn't making sense to me. I'm definitely going to do my research. I'm feeling kind of heartbroken, to be honest, because it's like, why?
Mean, is our government failing us? Because, the government controls America. And it's like, you can't be telling your people false things and giving them false hope. And I feel like if people think that, America is this great country, which I thought that we were, but it's a lot of things that's happening, and it's like, America is like falling. People are hungry. Healthcare. And you mean to tell me other countries got free healthcare? Daycare and all that stuff. People are well taken care of. This is scary right here.
Wow. And I love being American. I am a proud American citizen. But I feel like I shouldn't have things covered up. We shouldn't have to cover up other places to be great. I feel like we're great. Americans are amazing people. But it just seems like our votes aren't, like, they don't matter. What we want doesn't matter. And it's all about the politicians.
Right. It's
like
the high
they're
ups.
buying votes. Like, that's scary. That is scary. Our votes don't matter.
They do not matter. And that's what I always thought. Like, how can they count all these votes? Like, really? Somebody gonna have
these
their hands
people are already like
pre-selected.
Something.
Yeah, it's like
what? I have to do my research. This just like hurt me to my heart.
I mean,
I
love
am
our
heartbroken.
Country. I love it, but I know something is wrong. I can feel something is wrong. And it's like, people, they're going to speak out. People are getting tired and they're going to speak out. There it is, But this guy was definitely spitting some knowledge. And there's a lot of facts to what he was saying. People are getting sick. Why do people get sick all the time?
I've never seen so many sick people in my life. When I was a kid, we didn't have so many people with these diseases.
Like, come on, what's
we
going on?
didn't have so many people with the C word.
Right.
And now all I see is commercials about.
That's all you see.
The C word and medication. It's
right.
Like, what?
It's like, come on, man.
It's breaking my heart.
And it's like, where is this sickness coming through? through the food? Like what's going on? Is it in the air?
It's breaking my heart. It's very heartbreaking.
That's why people gotta do their research, and videos like this really help you to open up your eyes to see what's going on. You know, because it is a such thing as brainwash, and a lot of us we're just brainwashed. You know, we was taught these things, and now when you get older and you just start educating yourself, you start looking at things different in a different perspective. Something is off.
It just truly saddens me because
Something is off.
The citizens of America are so amazing, and just the thought of us being brainwashed or controlled in any way breaks my heart.
It really does.
Truly breaks my heart. Some amazing people in America of all shades.
And we gotta send our kids to school, and we're not there to know exactly what they're learning every day. And we just want them, because they the next generation that's up. They gonna be here, and we want them to know the truth. We want them to learn as much as possible, and learn about the world, and not lies, not made up stories.
Yeah.
So I take my hat off to this guy. He did a very good job. Yeah. Guys, go ahead and smash that like button, give this video a big fat thumbs up, and also get inside the comment section. We're gonna follow this guy. All right, we're gonna be doing some more videos on him. So we appreciate the love and support.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
All right, peace.
Peace.